Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Survived the heat wave?
Yeah, spent a lot of time in air conditioning, as I hope most of our listeners did, given that this heat wave covered about half the country.
Yep, it's pretty amazing. I hear a lot of people, though, instead of going to the gym, just stood outside and lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, it certainly was hot enough to do that. I did see a couple of videos of people baking cookies out on their stoops, just putting out a pan and letting the cookies bake in the heat. So hopefully everybody has had fun with the heat wave and came through it all right.
Absolutely.
So we've got a special guest here today. We are here with Annisa Teich of the West Hartford Co-working. Annisa, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We're doing fantastic. And we are here to talk about the changing face of work. And, it wasn't that long ago that basically your option was you went into an office, you did a job, that was it, or you worked out of your house. Now
Mm.
we're finding all sorts of middle ground between those two. And you're right in the middle of all of this, aren't you?
That is the truth. Yep. It's a fun place to be.
So tell us a little bit about West Hartford Co working.
Sure. So we are a suburban based co working facility. We currently occupy about 2,000 square feet in the center of West Hartford, Connecticut. We have about 30 members of various membership levels, which I can go into in a little bit. But really, we cater to the entrepreneurs, small businesses, a lot of folks that also can work and do work remotely for larger organizations, but surprisingly so, their organizations don't pay for them to do so, which is always interesting. And it's often assumed that their organization does. And so, with all of those sort of audience sets in mind, we definitely focus on affordable co-working options for our members.
All right. Now you mentioned in that description suburban co-working. First of all, for those of our listeners who are not familiar with co-working, can you tell them a little bit about what co-working spaces are? And then, what's the difference between suburban and urban co-working?
Absolutely. So, co working is essentially shared office space that can take on many forms. Um, ours is typically desk based co working. And so, we offer folks the ability to kind of own their own desk. They are members, they're not leasing from us. There's no real estate transaction, which is kind of an interesting tweak with co working spaces. So, you're a member and you have a desk that you've claimed, you pay on a monthly basis to occupy that desk, can move in, do what you want. We also then offer part-time options where you're, or in other facilities are often called hot desks, where you can be with us for a certain number of days out of the month and choose desks that's available when you are here. We also offer conference room options for our members or for folks that are not members of the desk spaces, also open to the public. But really, we're building a community here among all of those members. And so we do a lot to bring everybody together, whether that's educational events or networking events, little luncheons, things like that. Um, so again, that can take on many forms. Each co-working space or large entity, as there are many, kind of take on different levels of membership or focus on different things and different audiences. So each space really has its own unique flavor. And so it's become really interesting to sort of go into your question about suburban. It's become interesting to watch co-working spaces now kind of bleed into or start to become popular outside of the metro areas and into more suburban markets, tertiary, secondary markets. The difference is, and this is speaking from a Jersey girl, somebody that's been a member of spaces in larger metro areas like New York. In a larger metro area, you're kind of used to being, squished in like sardines. There's just so many people. And it's wonderful because, co-working is so prevalent. I mean, the running joke is there's as many like WeWorks in Manhattan now as there are like Starbucks, and the joke was there was a Starbucks in every corner. WeWorks is giving them a run for their money. So, but that, being one of the larger organizations, there is also plenty of room for smaller boutique organizations that come in to occupy this co-working market. But again, people in those areas are used to kind of being, squished in like sardines, kind of very noisy. The noise in a facility like that kind of becomes like the white noise, like working in a coffee shop, right? People move out of the metro areas to the suburbs for space, right? So
Right.
space in your home, space on the highway, just some more space. And so similarly, co-working facilities and the mentality, the expectation of members in suburban-based locations mimics that, whereas they don't want to be kind of squished together like sardines. They don't. I always say here, it's not a library. You're certainly people do talk at their desks as they should, but they don't want that constant buzz of noise. And so we do provide, maybe more conference room time so that they can pop away, and have a call, phone booths so they can have a private conversation, and things like that. Because the choice here, again, in people moving out of the larger metro areas for space, a lot of our members have the choice to work from home. They have a large, even if it's their couch, they have, or a home office, whatever, they have the ability to work from home. But working from home can be very distracting, right? You've got like your kids running around, or like your dog's barking at the birds. If there's a basket of laundry that you're like, oh, I should really, deal with that. It can be very unproductive and kind of lonely. So, that also has to do with, not being in a large city around like just people all the time. So just to be in a space where there's just kind of like collective productivity has been really valuable for our members. And again, in providing them with affordable options, whether that be if they, want to get completely out of their house all the time and have a dedicated desk membership, or they don't feel guilty in doing like a part-time membership. So they can get out of the house for like, 1 or 2 days a week. So that's sort of the difference in the mentality and the expectation in like an urban market versus a suburban market.
Yeah, I imagine that in the urban market, you probably have a lot more people who are working for other people that are renting the space out there. Whereas in the suburban area, you probably have a lot more entrepreneurs moving in there. I mean, what's the mix of types of people that you have as far as people who are renting the space there, and not only but it's full time, but also the part time people. And one of the nice things for flexibility, as you mentioned, is just being able to call up and set up a meeting to go in there instead of having people come to your house or having to meet at a Starbucks or something like that.
Exactly. So it's a bit of a mix in our space. I think, and it also depends on the industry, right? I think the technology industry in general is a little bit more progressive in their expectations of the workplace or the physical location of their employees. Maybe because a lot of the ways in which, remote employees stay in touch is technology based. So that's been certainly more progressive in that industry. We do have a number of folks that work for technology companies, and so they are remote members of those organizations. But I would say we're about 60-40, being 40 about like remote workers and 60 some type of an entrepreneur, whether it's an independent or part of a small business, and then they have a seat here, right, locally. But the interesting thing is, again, I sort of mentioned this in the beginning, of the remote workers, again, largely people that work for technology companies, so we have some that are not, or sales. Sales is always, of course, folks that travel a lot. That's always been a little bit more conducive with being remote. The interesting thing is they're not, although they're progressive, a little bit more progressive in allowing their employees to be remote or to go remote. The key word there is allow. And so a lot of people that I talk to are shocked when I say that just because they're a remote employee of an organization does not mean that their company is paying for it. So there are a variety, a lot of our members, actually more so than not, that are paying, as a remote worker, they're paying for their space here and their company is not. Because, again, this is progress that needs to be made still, the mentality of some of these organizations, I've worked for a number of them, as well, they're already doing you a favor in allowing you to be remote. And so, they're like, I don't have to pay for space for you. Like, you're not occupying a desk in one of our main offices. Like, cool, you're on your own. Like there's yet to be that push towards like, well, they're not occupying a space in your office. You over time do not need to, if more of your company employees go remote, you don't need to occupy as much real estate, hence saving the organization money. So there's a little bit of that where, again, there's progress that's been made, but still a lot more to come. And I think that has to do with also a general uneasiness that a lot of organizations still have about allowing their employees to be remote. If they're not there, for them to quote micromanage, because micromanagement I know is still a huge issue, and I think bleeds into the reason why remote working is not as widespread yet. They can't see you. They don't know what you're doing. And so the thought of even coworkers, again, I've been in the same situation having been remote for 2 different organizations. The mentality of your coworkers that might be at the home office is that the remote employees, they log in for 2-3 hours a day and then they do nothing all day. There's a lot of that still needs to culturally be worked on in regards to remote workers. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a challenge for the business themselves to actually manage their business with co-working out there. But the bottom line is, obviously, they're saving on the space that they have. And if you're working in your home versus going to a co-working space, I mean, the bottom line is you're paying for your home too. So I can understand them not wanting to pay you to go someplace else. And yeah, the accountability is really, really the biggest thing. I mean, my daughter-in-law works for a big company out of New York and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, she's able to do that from time to time, and I've seen her working from here, and it's great flexibility wise and so on. And it's the wave of the future for big companies, but also entrepreneurism really is just scratching the surface because so many of these big companies are downsizing, which gives a lot more opportunities for people to start their own businesses. And one of the big benefits in working in co-working spaces is the mix of the different businesses that are there and the talent and so on and so forth. So I'm sure that you see a lot of people collaborating together in areas that they never would have thought of if they hadn't been working there with other people. So that's a really huge advantage as far as I'm concerned. And I know that actually Eric got us involved with a co-working space to run networking meetings for those people there to kind of bring out the best there too. So you do have a lot of flexibility, and really it's just what you can come up with in your mind as far as how to realize the true benefits of being there with a whole bunch of diverse people, not to mention getting rid of the loneliness like you were talking about, because tired by like me, I don't have to worry about kids running around and that kind of stuff. And it's nice looking out in the woods in the backyard, but it's really, really nice being with people too.
Yeah, and it really, it depends on your personality. And so, we know that our members, as any, co-working space, the personalities and the workspace needs and preferences certainly vary. We do certainly have folks that are much more introverted, and they come in and they, kind of do their thing. They might have headphones on most of the day. They're not super active in sort of the other community building activities, events that we have going on, and that's fine. That is not what they want to get out of the space, right? That is fine. And then there are others that do want to, kind of be part of the larger community for this, yes, maybe there are ways they can collaborate, projects, business to kind of be had between each other. And we have had a number of those opportunities where, coworkers have struck up conversation and actually work together, or we've had a lot of referrals. Our current members or previous members have brought on then new members, friends of theirs, etc., or colleagues. So it really just, as with, you guys know, as with any networking event, it's not like you like show up and then everybody's going to come to you and give you their card, right? You get out of it what you put into it, and that's very similar here.
There's been a statistic going around for a few years that by the year 2040, the largest corporations on earth will only employ about 1,500 people each. And everybody else is essentially going to be a consultant going from project to
1099,
project.
Wow.
It sounds like you're already seeing sort of a transition to that with these remote workers from larger companies. They're really working on their own, but they're still an employee.
Yes,
So,
yes, and some of them are actually contractors. Yes, that's so interesting. I had not actually heard that statistic. I obviously knew about the trend towards co-working for the sake of real estate. It is now kind of this transitionary tool or resource for organizations that want to scale but aren't at the level where they could take on large chunks of real estate yet. So there's more, there certainly is more of a trend towards that versus like the big leap to like a 3 to 5 year lease, which was Starbucks or a 3 to 5 year lease, right? Beforehand, and now kind of co-working spaces are a little bit in the middle there. But that is really interesting how there might be an even greater transition towards, the gig economy that certainly
yes.
correlates there, and having less on the books employees and more 1099. That's interesting.
And that is something that, interesting what you just brought up is the opportunities for companies through co-working spaces where, when you're very small, people work out of their living rooms, maybe you get together in somebody's garage, but there comes a time when you've grown past that, but
Yep.
you're really not large enough to rent out, on a 3 to 5 year lease, as you said. So this really does give smaller companies that opportunity to grow that was more difficult. And that barrier to growth was one of the reasons why so many small businesses fail. So
Yeah.
co-working is actually giving them that opportunity to grow at their pace and actually overcome that barrier.
Yeah. There's an important legitimacy. It's all about perception still, and as much as we sometimes hate that and want to surpass that, business is very much about perception, same as any facet of life. And so having legitimizing your business by having a physical space to meet in, outside of a Starbucks, any of that, whether that is, translates here to a member, even having a part-time desk with some conference room hours, but they can have clients meet with them in a conference room in a beautiful space. That's an up level for them. Then upon that, we're going to have a private office space as a number of other spaces do at our new location. And that, getting past that sort of solopreneur phase into, maybe you have a small team, and then you have an office that is only yours at a space like ours. And that's another up level of like legitimacy. And that can be more or less important at various stages depending on the type of business that you're in. Of course, legal, finance, those things tend to be, having an office tend to be a lot more expected of various clients. But you're right, having that kind of intermediary place for them to kind of hop. And that's the thing too. I think of it this way. I honestly can't speak for others, other co-working operators, but I hope to see sort of my members take that kind of path, where they enter, they come and they meet with me and they're like, oh, okay, well, it's going to be a pinch for me starting out as a side hustler to do $100 a month. But let's do it. And, and then a year later, they're doing their thing. Maybe they went full time into their side hustle, and now they want to up level a little bit because they're going to be here, going to be meeting with clients, etc. Then, okay, well, they hired an assistant or another, team member, a coordinator or such, and now they need an office space for the team. And then someday, again, depending on the trajectory of their business, I hope that they grow out of even that. And they then can take on, real estate, a 3 to 5 year lease in a larger facility. That would be a dream, honestly, because that means that we're making the impact that we want to in the local economy.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned that you're moving into a new space, larger space. You've been growing fairly fast. So can you tell us a little bit about the growing pains that you've had and how quickly you're growing and what you plan to do with that growth?
Sure. So yes, right now, like I said, we are in a about 2,000 square foot facility in the center of West Hartford. The location has been wonderful for the early stages of the business. But as we've grown, again, we're now up to about 30 members. With honestly, I got like 2 more this week, so actually let's log that at 32. So we need more space for desks. I mean, just straight out for desks. But as I mentioned, there are a variety of types of memberships in our space and other co-working spaces that we wanted to also include. Office space is key. So if a co-working space can kind of get past that initial, same trajectories that we hope our own members take. We are primarily desk-based co-working here. In our larger space, our next space, which is going to be at 430 New Park, the other side of town. We're moving there in September. We're going to be taking on a 4,100 square feet and change. That will grow our membership levels and amenities to include private office space, additional meeting room space, its own separate kind of locked room for our dedicated desk members. Again, these are people that leave their things there every day. So we haven't had a problem here, but just having that extra layer of security, that small, tight-knit community of the folks that are there every day will be wonderful. We're going to have our own parking lot, free parking. That is the one drawback, one of a few drawbacks of being, in the center of West Hartford. We have
that'll cut people's costs in half.
Say that again?
I said that'll cut people's costs in half. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Because we actually facilitate the purchase of parking passes in one of the decks back here, and it's $100 a month for the parking pass. I mean, when our dedicated desk membership is $325 a month. So that's a huge cost savings again to remain affordable. So we're really, really excited about that. But it's in a larger kind of office building with some really great partners that we're excited to be, working with. The building is actually owned by the Greater Hartford Association of Realtors. They purchased that building 2 years ago now and have gutted it. I mean, it is gorgeous. Beautiful new lobby, landscaping, the whole bit. So we are occupying the first floor. It is an accessible space, which was also very important to us because our current space is not. And I've been embarrassed to have to say that we have had to turn away some folks that were either injured, like we had a member or two injured and couldn't get up the stairs, grandfathered building, couldn't get upstairs, or people that wanted to attend some of our events and were in a wheelchair. And so with those, I took those situations to heart and needed our next space to be accessible, and I'm happy to say that it is. So, oh God, what else? I mean, there's going to be a little kitchen cafe, a lounge, which I'm really excited about. Doesn't want to work on a fluffy couch every once in a while. And we'll also have a larger kind of that flexible event space in the interior so that we can host much larger events than we have been able to here. At most we've stuffed 40 people in our community space here. And people were sitting on the windowsill. So we can accommodate about 75 to 80 people pretty comfortably in the next space for events as well. So we're really, really excited about again, adding these new amenities and membership levels, and continuing to grow the community.
Fantastic. So assuming all goes as you've planned, what's next? What would you like to do with West Hartford Co-working?
Oh my God. I need to better prepare for that question, Eric. In all honesty, so and I've had some interesting conversations of late. I would say I'll be honest with you, I can't imagine us in this area in going into this new facility. I can't imagine us growing and needing much more space for this market than we do right now. I think we're going to pretty well, we're going to get settled. We're going to grow more into that space, and we're going to get pretty well saturated because though there are more and more, co-working places popping up. And I've become friendly with a variety of them. We're really excited about the trend towards it in the area. But again, it's not a major metro market. So I think growing too quickly as far as one location is concerned is not the way to go. It's what's the next city, the next small town, honestly, that we should go to and do the same thing again. Go, real small, 1,000 square feet to start, but another location further enough away that it won't cannibalize our business here. So that's sort of where I'm looking on the horizon.
Nice. All right, we're just about coming up on the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for today?
Well, first of all, congratulations on your growth and your move. But co-working, it solves so many issues for so many different business people, and really everybody has their own unique issues, whether it's space or whether it's needing to have a meeting or whether it's remote working and that kind of thing. So there's so many different things that you folks can cover. So, I mean, my big takeaway is I would just check it out and give you a call to see what the different options are, because there are so many different things to do. But congrats again on your growth. And obviously I think co-working is just tipping the iceberg as far as where it's going. And I know you see that too.
Yes, no, thank you. I appreciate that. And actually, I'll little shameless plug as far as checking us out. If you want to email us directly at hello@wehaworks, WEHA works.com, where any of your listeners, we'd be happy to provide them with 1 week of free co-working. So.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think the big takeaway for me is that these co-working spaces offer such a fantastic opportunity to grow your business. There's only so much you can do from your living room or garage, especially when you're doing it alone and need to be out there and meeting with other people. So this gives entrepreneurs and remote workers a fantastic alternative, especially to a loud Starbucks. And it certainly allows people to put forth a much more professional image.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And
of course, thank you.
You gave an email, but is there a website that people can go to get more information?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to www.westhartfordcoworking.com.
Great. And I encourage all of our listeners in the area to check it out. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the iTunes Store, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. See you then.